And then I'm going to introduce the speaker. I'm very happy to have the inaugural presentation from Ed Wald. Ed is a seasoned U.S. patent agent. He enjoys helping independent inventors and small companies at developing their ideas to fruition. Throughout his career, Ed has noted how inventors struggle with the development of products and obtaining the investment funding needed to help their products to market. Inventors are a very needy bunch, Ed. They need practically everything.
Yes.
Ed has teamed up with Scott to bring both the patent and business sides together in a holistic program, teaching inventors the skills needed for their success. He's going to help us with our funding journey. Ed, take it away.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate everybody showing up. And we really love to go out and speak to the different inventors groups. And so it worked out good. We had an opening, and we couldn't do it live, but we can do it over virtually. So that works good. And Scott, unfortunately, is sick today. So otherwise I'd have a co-pilot with me. But Doug had asked about fundraising. Now we do different subjects, kind of just trying to help out inventors across the country. And so today we were going to speak about fundraising for inventors, because we know that's a very important point. To every time you turn a wheel, it costs you money. So in order to get things to your success level, quite often it takes cash injection at least one point. So, and there's a lot to that. There's a lot of planning for it, and in order to get there, to make that difference, then it's quite a journey. So the QR code on the front is the website, so you can use that. There is a free download on there that you can use that kind of augments this session. And then I'll just get started with it. If I can, I'm using a different program style here, so hopefully it's going to go smoothly. So anyway, you'll see up on the board there the kind of the idea creation all the way to getting funding. There's many different spots.
Can you go put that QR code back up again? As in trying to.
Oh, okay. It'll be in the present. Let's see if I can get back to it. I think I'm going to have to skip screens. Can I show it to you later? Would that be fine? Or
yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Don't worry, John. It's on the PowerPoint, which I put up on the website. So the whole presentation is there.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions later on, I realize that we're going to be zipping through a lot of this stuff because there's just so much to cover. So we cover it fairly in depth, and then that PDF download will help with that. And you can always ask questions later as we go or at the end, and also emails too. So we're very wanting to help as much as we can. So I guess back to the kind of the flow here. A lot of inventors, when they first get started, they think that, of course, when they get the idea creation, that they're pretty much done. And as you get to be more seasoned as an inventor, you realize that, you might not just be creating one prototype. You might be looking at 10 of them, and you all of a sudden you got to have a plan because you don't have any plan, and somebody's asking for a pitch deck, and all these things kind of come into it as you go towards getting funding. You want to have your patent protection in place, like a couple of the gents were mentioning before it was, now it's a point where you want to file as soon as you possibly can. The first to file is versus first to invent system. So anyway, we want to take good notes as usual, and have a really good relationship with the patent agent or attorney, and then make sure that you can have all your ducks in a row for looking for that funding when the time comes. If we can. Okay, and so as you go, you're going to reach quite a few decision points. A lot of times it's ideal if you can self-fund your project, but it's just depending on how big the project is and how fluid you are with cash at the time. And do you need cash flow? And and so on. So a lot of them, look to friends and family, especially if you're a newer inventor. You don't have to be quite so formal, and generally people will go more by you as a person and your invention on an informal basis, and a lot of people get funding that way. And then some people look at getting angel investor funding. And then there's, of course, the other different types of funding, equity, debt, convertible notes, so forth. We're not going to go into those too in depth, but they go into more in the PDF. So, and with a vision, we always want to start with the end in mind. That's kind of how we do things, and hopefully you folks do too. You at least look at the end and trace it back to the beginning and see what steps that you're going to need to do to get to where you want to get to. So, and as mentioned, there's different funding sources. There's personal financing, where you're funding your own invention and your own process that way. There's friends and family. There's crowdfunding. Somebody had mentioned crowdfunding before. That's becoming pretty popular now. There's angel investors, there's venture capitalists, and there's also getting funding from the SBA. So it's generally, as you go from left to right, it gets more difficult because the trust factor, on yourself. Hopefully, you can trust yourself. Your friends and family, they known you for longer and seen how you are as an actor and so forth. And then as you get further to the right, probably when you meet the angel investor, they've never met you before, so they're going to require more detail on who you are, what your invention's about. And so that's why it's so important to keep good notes on things and be very approachable, be very make sure you've done all your homework, and really have a good message for your opportunity. And like I say, as you guys have any questions along the line, feel free. Personal financing is pretty obvious. There's advantages and disadvantages to all these. Of course, it's the easiest source to obtain. You don't have to have any partners. You keep all your equity. But the disadvantages is, you're not really sharing your risk for anything. And it oftentimes I find it limits the growth, because you just, as one person, you generally don't have the money that's needed to really crank it up to the next notch. And it might limit your team power too. And with friends and family, a lot of people have borrowed, from friends or family, and hopefully that went well. Again, there's advantages, disadvantages. Like we mentioned before, there's minimal due diligence because they probably know you fairly well, and they really want you to succeed. So that's a real advantage, because they're kind of in your corner and cheering for you, which is pretty nice. Because sometimes when we're inventing, it seems like kind of a lonely road. So it's kind of nice to have that encouragement as the person goes, and oftentimes too some wisdom too from different folks. And like we mentioned before, generally there's no formal process because they've known you for a long time and so forth. Disadvantages is, which is a big one here, is it may change relationships if everything isn't done right, and there's a lack of documentation just by the nature of it, and the lack of sophistication. So you really want to have very good understanding. You want to have everything explained out well, what the terms are, what the expectations are. You don't want to say, "Oh, I'll be paying you back in 6 months," and all of a sudden 6 months comes around and, well, it's looking like it's going to be 8, and because somebody's generally going to be counting on that. So if anything, you want it to be in 5 months instead of 6. But the best thing is to have a really good plan and just to stay on course to keep everybody on good terms, so you can still go to those family reunions. With crowdfunding, uh, the advantages are early market validation. You're going to get your day in the sun there on the internet real quick. You generally got a built-in community, and there's lots done with social media these days. So you don't get any equity loss, but you are going to be publicly disclosing your IP, your invention, when you turn that on the internet. So you want to be really, really careful that you've got all your patent protection in place and so forth. There's the high marketing burden as goes with social media. There's lots of video ads and so forth. And you got to really maintain that stuff. So some people love that and some people don't. So you really want to be sure, if you need, to make a good impression online, that you're able to answer all those comments and that you're doing really good videos, and because you don't want your reputation to be at stake. So now most people around this area of the country anyway, which is Arizona, they look to angel investors. There's lots of angel investor groups here and in Southern California. So the advantages of angel investors are pretty fast and flexible, and few formalities. There's generally there'll be groups of doctors, dentists, engineers, just different people that have been good in business over the years, and they've made some money and they want to diversify, and quite often out of interest sake, to lend money to inventors or different business people that are looking to borrow money. So they're pretty savvy at business usually. They've got a good expertise and they got networks and credibility, and they're quite often willing to take some early risks as compared to, say, venture capital folks. They're more informal, and they'll listen to what you're about and your products about way easier than venture capital. So that's some real good advantages to that. Disadvantages, of course, you're going to have to pay for some of that money that you're going to borrow, so you can get dilution and reduce control along with that. And again, you want to make sure your vision and expectations are in alignment with between you and the venture capitalist or the angel investor that's lending to you. You want to be, in essence, you want to be a team as closely as possible. You want to get along together. You want to have the same vision for how things are going. And so that works pretty good. Angel investors, lots of people use them in this area of the country. Venture capitalists. So there's advantages. If you're looking for some serious money, then generally venture capital is where you're going to be going to. They got access to high power networks and strategic partners.
Hey, Ed,
Yes.
I have a question. You just said serious money. So what when you say serious money, what are you talking about as far as serious? And so what are the sort of the different categories? Angels, venture, et cetera. What's the money breakdown typically?
Yeah, I would say probably 10 million or less. Most venture or most angels are fine with, or they can have a group of them do it. But if you're, say, looking for 50 million or 100 million, or like, say, you want to set up facilities and
Mhm.
put together a whole team and do a whole bunch of production, then generally you're going to need the big money from the venture capitalists.
And what's the lowest? With the angel? What's the sort of the lower end threshold that's entertaining? Do they go down below 500,000, or is there, what is the
Yeah,
lower threshold?
yeah, not for venture capital, but for angel investors, yeah, they definitely will. Some of them will lend 30, 40, 50, $100,000, whatever's really needed. Of course, they're going to check, make sure what you're spending on. But yeah, whereas with venture capitalists, they're not interested unless it's a reasonable amount. And I would say probably least 10 million, depending on the group. But yeah, it's because they're just a big wheel to start turning, right? So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Ed. Thanks.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you bet. Thanks for the question. So yeah, like advantages, validation, and credibility in the market. They're very credible. Disadvantages, you're going to be paying quite good, quite high rates for that money, and often you lose a lot of control on it because they want to make sure that it's a lot of money. They're going for a lot of risk, and they want to minimize that, and they want to make sure that they're getting paid well, good return on their investments. So there is some pressure for hyper growth, and it is sometimes a very long, complex, and competitive fundraising process because they just have so many uh, boxes to check just to make sure that everything's going to go as well as possible. They do have a quite high failure rate, so in order to make up for those, they quite often do very high documentation, and they just want to really minimize their risk. So, and there's always the SBA. There's a lot of folks will use SBA because they've got some pretty good advantages. They're lower interest rates and longer repayment terms. You still retain 100% ownership, and it can be used for a wide variety of business needs. So that's pretty good, significant advantages. The disadvantages on this is it is a ton of paperwork, and they've just revamped their system, so it's even more stringent, and it requires definitely strong credit and personal guarantees. You might be putting up a house or whatever you've got of collateral so that they can make sure and have that risk mitigated as much as possible. Again, it's slow and it's document heavy. You're going to be working through their paperwork for a significant amount of time, and the debt must be repaid regardless of the results. So it's kind of on you. It kind of goes back around, circles around kind of that where you're self-funding in essence, because you're taking on, again, all the risk. So, and there's other sources too, the strategic partners. You can team up with somebody. There's private equity. There's family offices are becoming a big thing now, where wealthy families that along the line of the angel investors, because they've done well in whatever business that they've got and they want to diversify. So there's the family offices. I guess I heard a quote that it was about a third of lending comes from family offices now, which kind of surprised me. But and there's also the CVC. And a quick chat about patents. As mentioned, you always want to file for protection way before anything goes public.
Ed, sorry to interrupt. What does CVC stand for?
I actually don't know that off heart because that was Scott's slide, and he's sick today, so I can get back to you with that. He had told me yesterday, but I just forget offhand. So I can get back to you with that. And I think it's also in the that PDF too. So and the point for patents too is investors really like to see uniqueness, as you know, of course the patent office does too, and society does, but investors really like to see that uniqueness so that they can have that advantage in the marketplace. And it can be used as asset collateral or leverage. So patents are a very good tool. So part of what you're going to be doing if you're doing any kind of paperwork generally is you're going to be nailing out your use of funds. So you're going to have some personal, a little bit of personal, but a lot of it will go to hardware, software, quite a bit of it with prototyping. Some with R&D. You really want to be careful on the R&D because you want to have a plan so that stays within scope, because that can go way, way, way out of scope and you've spent a ton of money. And so you really want to have it pretty tight in the budget. On the bigger deals, you might have infrastructure, marketing team, digital marketing, all the different things that you can list. You're going to need some legal help and probably insurance, maybe some debt repayment. And it's contingency funds are pretty important too, because generally not, as you guys have found, most projects don't go by like in a perfect world. There's things that come up that just all of a sudden you need some extra money to have this or that happen properly. So it's pretty important to have some contingency funds somewhere in there. So valuation, we do this more in the course that we've done. It's using the Berkus method. Sometimes it's very valuable to be able to put a value on your product and say your company if it's a new company, and so this is kind of an example of how you might put your numbers in there, and you want to keep them reasonable. Any numbers that you put in there, you want to be able to justify. Like somebody will say, okay, you've got in your patent and your prototype line, $1 million. Let's talk about where you come up with that $1 million. And so you got to be able to justify it. So as close as you can on it, it makes it so that the different investors can say, okay, well, it's a roundabout figure. We can figure that it's worth that much money and then go with that. So, and there's other models for valuation. There's the VC method, there's the VC sensitivity model, VC dilution model, VC if you're doing different rounds, and I think that's future value and present value. This was Scott's slide again, but you'll want to know kind of where you're sitting now and where you should be sitting in the future, but you want to make sure that those are pretty accurate. So business plans, that's what a lot of new inventors get stuck on this part. They figure, well, I got my invention. I'm just going to kind of just go with the flow on it. And it's pretty tough to keep on budget and on time and everything. So do you need one? I would say on any invention at all, generally, you're going to need one just to keep yourself in line and have something to show, especially if you're going to expect some funding interest. You want to say, well, here's my plan, because it just reduces the risk so significantly. Can you use a template? Yeah, you can use a template to a certain extent. On the lower sophistication levels, like with friends and family, you can probably get away with a template one. But as you get higher in the chains, the venture capitalists are definitely going to look for a sophisticated business plan. And it's the problem with using a template is generally they don't put the same weight on the things that you're going to need. You're going to have probably a specific case. And so generally, angel investor and above, you want to have a pretty good business plan done. What's the purpose of the business plan? Well, it's to keep so that others know what you're doing and so that you know what you're doing, so you can stay on track for money, and you're going to know what your price point is, and you're going to know when you're expected to be done, and when you need to do this and that, and really to stay on budget and stay on time. So why do most business plan not really pass due diligence? Because they're templated and just not thoroughly done. I mean, you really want to do your homework ahead of time so that any investor that looks at that business plan can see what your plan is and that it is very viable. You got to be careful on some of these. Business plan can be, in essence, a legal document, not generally, but if it is, you want to probably have some disclaimers in there and make sure it's all accurate and double check it, and it should be fine. So what do investors look for in a business plan? They look for the idea. They're looking for what's the invention and what's the patent protection that's available for it. So you want to really have a good, I think somebody said in the group there that they're a patent attorney, and that's really good. That's you got to have a good relationship with whoever's doing the patent, and you want to make sure that they really know the area expertise and do a fabulous job on the claims if they're writing a utility non-provisional. On a provisional, not so important, but you really want to have as good a protection in place as you can as you go. They also investors really look at marketing and sales, because you can have the greatest invention in the world, and if you don't have marketing, you're not going to have sales. And if you're not going to have sales, then you're not going to have any money to pay yourself and the investor back. So they really look forward, making sure that you got that. They're going to look for financing. You want to have them as leaders. You want to have your profit and losses and break even analysis, different statements in there that are very and the accountants can look at and say, yeah, this makes sense. So you get to the ask. That's a super important point, because if you don't know what you're asking for, you're not going to get it. And you want to be very, very intentional with your ask and be very defined on that. So when do you want to ask for the funding? I guess I'll open that up to you guys for a couple minutes and see what your thoughts are on that.
I would have thought you'd need hard data on whether or not your invention will sell.
Yeah.
This is something I feel like this is the part that most of the inventors I encounter skip. How did you test the market? Where did you get the idea that people would want to spend X dollars for the upgrade to the whatever? And what makes you think you're going to make any money by selling this thing? Sometimes I think they haven't really thought the numbers through.
Yes. Yeah, and you don't want to ask for funding too quickly, because, like, especially if you're self-funding, the more that you can have developed by the time you go to ask for that funding, it shows that you're very vested in your project, that you've invested your time, your money, and that you're extremely confident in it by doing that. And so when you get to the point, you can show them, say, look, I've invested this, and this is what we've got. And if you've done it right, that should be very impressive. And but you don't want to wait too late where you're going to miss opportunities. You might get great deals on materials if you can buy in bulk, or all kinds of things can go well if you've got the money. So it's very important to have that timing down, and, like you say, have some kind of proof of concept, and because a lot of people will try to go and get funding and they don't have like a product that they can show works or whatever, and that's just really a hard sell, and you're probably going to be paying for it dearly during negotiations. They're going to be asking for more or whatever. So, and how much funding do you ask for? That's an important point too. You don't want to ask for too much, and you don't want to ask for too little. So that's why the super importance of having done your homework on that business plan, and to make sure that you can justify all the things. One thing that investors really look down upon is if you're asking for a whole bunch of funding, and then a whole bunch of funding is going to who? It's going to you. They don't like to see that. They want to see it going to things that, like inventory and stuff that's more sellable. And so you got to decide, what are you going to do with the funds? That's a big decision, because you're going to be running pretty lean, and you want to make sure that you have enough funds and that you're allocating them to the right spots to get you to the end. And then you got to consider in your ask, what are you willing to give up for the funds? You know, it might be collateral, it might be a board seat, it might be equity, it might be all kinds of things. But a lot of inventors get very scared off when they hear what a VC wants to take over, you know, a big chunk of the company, or ask for a huge percentage of interest, or whatever they do, and it just scares off the inventors. So because they figure, oh, we just can't afford that. But it's all really in perspective, because getting funds can put you into a whole new space where the opportunity would not have happened if you didn't have access to those funds. So it's very important that you get the funds that you need, and that you're able to do the right things with them. And don't give away the farm, obviously, too, because that's kind of sad when it goes where you no longer have control of it, and kind of takes the fun out of it. So here's an example, and we'll let you guys think whether this seems like it's a good example or not. We're seeking $750,000 in equity seed funding to be used over an estimated 18-month runway. Funds will support product development, 40%, marketing and sales, 30%, and key hires at 30%. What do you guys think of that one?
It's not clear how much of the company you're getting for your money.
Yeah, you want to be very detailed in it, right? It's one thing that you note in the very first, there's a lot of detail that's in there already, right? Like how much money and how long and what it's going to go to. But yeah, you want to specify. Also, you want to do, okay, who are those key hires, and what are you going to do with that marketing and sales? Is that enough? And, you know, product development, is that too much, too little?
You know, the first investment in Apple was for $100,000. It was Mike Markula. He got a third of the company for $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we up.
All right, sorry, 250,000. 100,000 was for Google. That was when Sergey and Breen got together. Their first investment was 100,000, and I misremembered. Steve Jobs got 250,000 from Mike Markula. First investment, third of the company.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
wouldn't it be prudent to, have a patent in hand? I know you want to file for a patent, which can take, I don't know, years to get it.
I don't think Apple had any patents. Not at the time.
Yeah.
They
I'm
basically
thinking
copied
about
the 8-bit
myself.
microcontroller. You know.
I know I want to file for a patent, so I have some protection rights as I'm building prototypes and what have you, and all that. But to go out and start asking, I mean, I don't even want to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars until I know I'm going to have a patent in hand. So how do you get an investor on a patent pending? That's, I just don't understand how that works, how you can go and ask for, hundreds of thousands of dollars to someone, and nobody knows if you're going to get a patent, because without the patent, anybody can, copy your idea. And that's another battle, is protecting your patent once you get in the marketplace. I've heard horror stories about that. So I'm at the beginning phase, guys. I don't want to interrupt your thing, but I got to get a patent search done. I got to get the patent in process. While I'm good at ideas and making prototypes, that's what I love. But now I'm getting to that point where I need to move forward with the process. So I appreciate you, Ed, coming on, and everyone sharing their experiences and getting me to my next step. So I'll let you continue. Sorry.
I think that's really good. And seems to me there's a patent attorney in the group. I'd just like to hear his thoughts on, probably to share with you, kind of what he thinks on it, and then I'll share too.
Thanks, Ed. Mark, yeah. So what I would say is like, well, with respect to Apple, probably a lot of what was being developed was programming that that's basically a secret unless you reveal the source code. So if you keep the source code secret, then you've got something that's protected. Even if you show someone how your software works, they can't just figure out the software right away. So that's kind of a secret. So that's one reason why maybe Apple didn't have patents early on. And for a guy like you, patent pending is better than nothing because it protects you and it shows the investor that you've taken the steps to protect yourself. If you've also shown the investor that you've done patentability searches to show that you've got an area here that is going to be patentable because no one else is doing what you're trying to get a patent on, that's going to give some support to your idea that you're going to get a patent in the future. And of course, once you do have a patent, that's even better for the investor because he knows you've gotten a patent. And so that's kind of the way that works. So as long as you filed for a patent application, most investors, I think, will look to see, well, did you do a search? Or the investor may just read your patent and realize, oh, your stuff is just like this other stuff here. I'm not going to invest. But if he sees that, oh, I see something very unique here, that'll help him, want to invest with you.
Yeah, very
And
good.
you do patent searches as well, right, Michael? Or you have someone that does them for you?
Yeah, I do it myself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's super important. Do that search, like you mentioned. It takes down the risk for the investor, and it shows that you've moved ahead in, having belief and spent money in what you're doing. And most, uh, if you've got a really good patent in place that you can be, say, even if you're patent pending, because it does take a while to get to the patented stage where it's an issued patent. But in the meantime, if you can show really good claim set to someone that knows what they're looking at, and they see the search and they see, oh, there's definitely some light here at the end of the tunnel, I think that really goes across big. If you don't have any protection in place, unless you're mentioning, like, say, the trade secrets or whatever, then an investor is going to be kind of leery to invest. But it's always good, especially great that you got patent attorney or patent agents in the group too, because you can kind of help each other and just have a look and see what, do those look like a good set of claims, or are we missing something? So, and it's kind of on you as the inventor to be really telling your patent attorney or agent every single thing about that. Just disclose, so you get a very good patent, and then you're sitting in a pretty good position.
So the original intellectual property for the Apple I was a schematic diagram at Homebrew that was given away by Steve Wozniak. He gave the full schematics away. Everything was open source. There was no intellectual property nailed down at all. I don't even see a copyright on the original patent, on the original schematic, which I'm looking at right now. So interestingly enough, he was very open about it.
Yeah, it's interesting how
it changed.
Yeah, and just to get, of course, that money back then, $100,000 or $250,000 is like huge money nowadays. But even so, to think of that, right, and how huge Apple's become, and
now they patent everything. They patent everything.
Yeah, they sure do now. That's for sure.
This is back in 1976.
Yeah. It's a few years ago now for us.
Oh yeah.
So there's the other example. This round will allow us to reach 50,000 users, launch our mobile app, and achieve monthly recurring revenue of 80,000. We anticipate a Series A round of 3 to 4 million in 2026. So you can see the more that you add to that, the more the investor sees that your homework's done, and then they can say, well, it looks good. I have more questions on this or that, but at least you're within the range. They know what to expect, and if you know what you're asking for and that's what you need, then it usually works out pretty good. So yeah, and so of course with this, I am a patent agent, as I mentioned. It's nothing was legal advice through there, but it's good that we have those chats on things, and I would encourage anyone to get with patent agent or patent attorney with your group or other, and really develop a good relationship with them, so that, because the patenting part of it is very important. So I'd really encourage you on that, because you do want to have good protection on your invention as you roll forward and get that funding and see it through to success. So on this last screen, we've got our QR code for, we've got a YouTube channel up as well, and some groups use it. We go out and present to different groups in person, or we can do it online like this, or some groups use the channel. If all of a sudden a speaker doesn't show up, they'll put up the channel and pick an episode and talk about it or whatever. But anyway, it's up there for free usage for anybody who's interested. And we really want to encourage all inventors across all the US, really, and across the world too, to do what they do and do it well and have fun doing it. And part of that might be getting money. And so we want to enable all these things as much as we can. And it's open for questions. Anybody, I don't know what our timing's like. Doug can be the judge on that, but certainly open for questions, and really appreciate being invited, and a nice group.
I got a question. I came in a little bit late, so I missed your introduction. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do? And is this a full-time career for you in inventions? Are you a patent attorney, or what do you do?
Yeah, I'm a patent agent full time, and then I do other business things on related to invention development and so forth. We've got the YouTube channel, and I also do different things like real estate and so forth, to make it so that I can do more on the helping out inventors and going around to the different groups and so forth. So that's kind of my take on things. And Scott's not here, but he's been a business consultant for 30 years, and so we teamed up together. We made a course, so you can go pretty much from having the idea all the way to pitching, just like you'd see on Shark Tank or in front of angel investors, having everything, all your ducks lined up and all your paperwork done, and so you can be successful in getting that funding.
So is being a patent agent the secret to wealth?
Oh, I don't know about that. It sure is a very extremely interesting career. I know that I try to keep my prices as reasonable as I can, because I feel like a lot of inventors get stuck where they can barely afford the patent, and then all of a sudden they got no money left for developing. So I try to keep my prices down. I know that some have went fairly really high in the last while, and just depending on where you're out of. The bigger centers, LA and New York, are pretty expensive, but I imagine it's actually pretty expensive in your area of the country there too. But
Well,
I'm
I'm taking a survey of all the inventors that you've helped. How many, as a percentage, have actually been able to make any money off of their invention?
It's been very low, but that was why I went to this area. Now we've got it so that we take on less of. We kind of qualify the inventions first, and really coach them if it's not something that they're going to make money on it. We want at least you to break even, but it's nicer. They say statistically 5% of people filing are successful and actually make money. And I don't even know if it's that high, but we definitely want to be well above that 5%, as high as we can possibly get it. And if you train people and guide them, then there's a lot better chance of that.
Very good. I asked John Yankovich the same question. He's a partner in a firm down in Stanford, and he said the number of inventors who are independent who got patents, and he's in the field like over 30 years. He said was 0. I was like shocked. I said, nobody? It's like, nope, nobody ever makes any real money. But Mike, I think maybe you had some good successes with your clients. Is that right?
Yeah, I had one that comes to mind is he was working in the in vitro fertilization field, and he was making incubators for that.
That
And
sounds like
getting-
Milton Chen. It's
his name, yeah, Mike Chechi was his name, is his
Oh, okay.
name, and he was making petri dishes that were set up for cameras, so you could see the little embryo developing and record it. Anyhow, he sold his company. He built a company around it. He sold it to Cooper Surgical for $100 million.
nice.
But
Yes.
he had almost 100 patents and about that many trademarks. He pushed IP, and all that stuff got transferred over to Cooper Surgical. And I worked on that M&A project. So he was a big success. But you're right. I mean, he's the one that skewed the whole average, but many of them don't make much money. But then I had some clients make money with crazy little ideas. I had a lady who had this funny little clothes hanger for tank tops. There was a short clothes hanger that kind of had a loop at the end for a lady's tank top. And she got on the Home Shopping Network and made a mint. It was
Wow.
a design patent, but it was she made a nice little living from that.
Yeah, that's what we found too. Different ones that are already set up, they got their little business and say they've got a little product line, and then they add to it, and they kind of are not super sophisticated, but they know what they're doing and they know how to spend their money and how to get it through the process. Those we find are the most successful, and they might be manufacturing, or they can license it out if they don't want to be investing a bunch of their own capital in. But yeah, it's a really tough process for inventors to get so they are making money, and that's sure our goal on things too.
Very good. Well, if there are no other questions, I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up 2025 for the Inventors Association of Connecticut series of presentations. We're going to do a holiday party, which I will announce the details on later. It's a Chinese New Year party, and it'll be hosted by the Standard Manufacturers of America over here in Milford. And I understand there will be dim sum. I know some people like that sort of thing. And so I haven't set up speakers yet for next year. And Ed, maybe you'll come back and present for us on a different topic. This was great. Appreciate your time and your efforts. And I hope everyone will join me in thanking the speaker. And I will see everyone here next year. Thank you.
Yeah, have a great holiday
Thank you.
season, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.